Hey, what is up, everybody? This is Stevie Breach coming to you here with a review of the Into the Light documentary. Two of my friends, Jim Nye 888 and as well as Luke Cage 29, making his return to YouTube. He pops up every once in a while. Both have reviewed this DVD. I wanted to get my thoughts out there as well, but make sure you go out of your way and check out both of their reviews. They were both really, really good. Of course, I did an in-depth look into the Sting Into the Light Blu-ray set. Just the other night. Mine came in on Wednesday. I thought this was a very, very good documentary and DVD set as well. I watched this today on my day off, and I was very, very into the Sting Blu-ray set. I think it was a very good. I don't really put it into the top echelon of documentaries. This is one that I've been looking forward to for a real long time. So honestly, when I look into Sting's career, I don't think that they did the job that I was really looking forward to. I mean, it's not the way that I would have structured the documentary. I know that they try to make it seem like the WWE things in this documentary makes more, like it's must more see, because they sort of splice in what is going on in Sting's career today as you're going through his years of WCW and different chapters. I honestly like the documentaries where they just start at the beginning and go to the end. When those ones, you think of like the Shawn Michaels documentary, even though it came out a few years early. The Rock documentary, even though it came out before the biggest match of Rock's career at WrestleMania 28. The Stone Cold Steve Austin documentary is one that sort of bookends his whole career. Anything that Stone Cold Steve Austin does in the world of professional wrestling is not going to matter after the fact that Stone Cold's career ended at WrestleMania 19. He came back and did the Sheriff. That was one that sort of is the most perfect packaging of somebody's career in the world of wrestling. We may never see a Hulk Hogan one, but that's sort of another thing. You know, now that he's came back to WWE, if they would have made a Hogan set after around WrestleMania 30, they would have been able to show everything in his career, and it would have been one of the best ones as it is. But because of the Hulk Hogan mistake that he made, we may never see it now that he is out of WWE. Maybe we'll get another just mashup of mashes by those, but I really want to see that Hulk documentary somewhere down the road. But the Sting one is the one that we're talking about today. It opens up with Sting talking about that it's going to be now or never, that he signs with WWE. This is a trip that he took to the WWE studios, or not the WWE studios, I apologize, but he went to the WWE headquarters to meet with Triple H, to meet with Vince, go over plans over what they could be doing with the Sting character in the foreseeable future. I believe on this trip they offer him a contract, and as you'll see, he doesn't actually sign this contract until January of this year, leading into WrestleMania, even though that he did a lot of things like Survivor Series, the WWE 2K video game, various, signings, various meet and greets, various appearances, such as going to Comic-Con, things that really blew Sting out of the water, making him one of the most talked about wrestlers there was. WWE.com met with Sting during this, and basically they said that since the 2K video game comes out, Sting has been in the top 10 most searched things on WWE.com at the date of his going there, which Sting is like, I've never even worked here. That's bizarre that they're looking for him, but they talk about the Clash of the Champions in 1988. Of course, that was the first real big match for Sting when he went in there against Ric Flair. In that match, he went to, I believe it was a 1-hour draw where Sting put the Scorpion Deathlock on Ric Flair as time expired, and it was sort of like the start of the real big push of Sting. When we talked about Sting versus Ricky Steamboat at the that would have been the WWE Rivalries show that was on earlier this week. That was sort of Ric Flair taking Ricky Steamboat, who was pretty green. He was a rookie at the time. And Ric Flair proving that he could make a star and have somebody that he would be able to sort of teach to work with him and be able to have competitive matches at that time. When they were wrestling for Mid-Atlantic for the television title back in the day. And I believe that's what Ric Flair was doing with Sting. He noticed that Sting had it. He was somebody that the fans were drawn to because of his neon colors, his wrestling persona where he did the pound on his chest, and it's just the yell into the heavens pretty much. But the Great American Bash of 1990 definitely was his first real. No, I apologize. The Clash of Champions of '88 was really definitely his real push. They were pushing him really hard before he had a knee injury, which sidelined him for about 5 months, where he came back at the Great American Bash. He would have a match against Ric Flair. This is when he took on the responsibilities of carrying WCW, winning the World Heavyweight Championship, and from then it was on and cracking, where basically, at the Great American Bash, Jim Ross says it himself. Basically, you're seeing, one of the greatest wrestlers of the 1980s, which was Ric Flair, going up against the star who was supposed to carry wrestling in the 1990s, which would be Sting. And Sting overpowered him and became the guy to be the champion, where he moved on becoming the franchise guy. You'll hear stories about this in the bonus stories, which is like it's not, I thought I was watching the Blu-ray exclusives at the end, but it tends to me that you watch the documentary and then you watch the stories that they put on at the end of the documentary, where things that they talked about when they were filming it, but they just didn't see how they fit into there. He says that, they went to this convention, and WCW, got Sting all dressed up and he got all painted and they drove him there. And then once they got to the convention, they didn't really know where to go. So basically he started taking this escalator up to the top floor, thinking that maybe he'd be able to find where he was supposed to go. And as he was riding up the escalator, he could hear Mean Gene's voice, basically saying that, welcome to the convention. We got a ring. We're going to be having wrestling matches. We're going to be giving away Hulkamania bears. Come meet Coco Beware. Come see Hulk Hogan. And WWE has Vince McMahon there, and they're just A+ on their appearance at that wrestling convention. And then you walk over to where WCW is set up, and they just basically have a podium, and on the podium it's got like a piece of poster board, and on the poster board is hand, just drawn with a pencil, Sting, the man of the Scorpion Deathlock, and has a scorpion drawn onto the piece of paper. They have just a television screen where they're showing the Best of Sting VHS, and Sting is just so openly embarrassed that, WCW is coming off like this major Bush League deal, that he just honestly just walks out on the convention, and Jim Herd gives him a call, and Sting just tells him that that they're coming off bad. There has to be some changes in the company. Jim Herd promises that they're going to step it up, and he says that they never did step it up and never really ever turned it around. But once he is the franchise of the company, he's in his on his property, I guess you can say, building a bonfire. And as he's building the bonfire, he's talking about the fact that he's, going into 1996, where Sting would take on the storyline of, basically all of his friends thinking that he turned on him because of the NWO and the fake Sting, and then, turning his back on WCW and all of the wrestlers, where basically he said he was a free agent. And he's talking about the promo where he's just, you're going to see Stinger pop up from here and now again, but he's doing this for a reason. He's not leaving. He's still the guy. He just needs to find out who he really is. And at this time, he's realizing that the Stinger, the California Surfer Sting character just wasn't going to be working in the foreseeable future. And then from there, you hear about Hulk Hogan says that at this time in the 90s, the baby faces of the 80s and 90s were starting to get turned on because the fans had really been able to see them overexposed for just way too long. Hulk Hogan talks about the fact that guys like him and guy like Sting were able to sort of reinvent themselves to the point where they'd be almost like a new character, but they'd be the same person. And that's what carried them on to wrestling and having a big career in the 90s. Because as you think of Hulk Hogan is the guy that when he left WWF at the time, and I believe 1992, maybe 1993 it was, Hogan and Vince both thought that the Hulk Hogan character was dead and they were not going to be able to get anything out of it. When he went to WCW in 1994, 1995, it had a little bit of fans behind it because fans still loved Hulk Hogan, but it wasn't like Hulkamania like it was in WWF. And it wasn't just because it was on the WCW brand and not the WWF brand. It just was, people had seen this, people had done this, and it was coming off as Bush League, and then they reinvented him as being in the NWO and things like that. That, of course, Sting would be the guy to fight the NWO, hanging out in the rafters, not really doing anything for an entire full year except showing up on a Nitro here or there, stopping an NWO beatdown, coming out and beating the NWO, doing some sort of a surprise to stop the NWO, which built them up to Starrcade of '97, which Sting talks about the fact that, just he basically says that when they went out to the ring at Starrcade of '97, because of Hogan's, he doesn't say this, he just sort of implies it, and you can see it in his eyes, and you can see it in his face when he's talking about the match. He just basically says that when they went out to the ring, nobody knew what was going to happen. They didn't really even have a finish planned out. Eric Bischoff's telling the story that Hogan was trying to politic in order to have him win the match. Anybody who was watching WCW at that time knew that Hogan needed to lose that match. Sting needed to go over. It didn't make any sense for Hogan to win. And the shenanigans that WCW would pull off with this match over how big this was with, the referee, Nick Patrick, doing a normal count, and then Bret Hart throwing a fit, saying that it was a fast count, and then basically them having to, I believe that they redid the match on Thunder because they were launching Thunder on TBS that week, and then having, I think Hogan ended up winning the Thunder match, I think, and not even really going with Sting carrying the championship. It was almost like what TNA did with Matt Hardy giving up the championship after winning it at Bound for Glory this year. I don't know if that was some thank you to letting Bound for Glory run in Omega's backyard, and then sort of piggybacking off Omega's success and maybe Matt Hardy's connections in order to making sure that they were going to have fans there and they would have sponsors and this, that, or the other. But it just seemed like that was stupid to build just all the way up to this main point, then give the title to Sting, and then just take it away 2 days later and put Sting on the chase again. We already saw Sting on the chase for what was like well over a year because the storyline was going on the year before at Starrcade. I don't want to see this again. I want to see Sting carrying the belt. I want to see Sting beating the NWO, and I want to see Sting getting rid of the NWO. That doesn't mean I don't want to see Hogan. I don't want to see Nash. I don't want to see Hall. Just the storyline ran. It's over and it's done with. One of the main reasons why WCW died was because they just kept on trying to rehash what worked in the past. It's not going to work again. We've already seen it. It's over. It's done with. They get to the point with Sting watching the last Nitro, talking about how sad it was and just how hard of the match it was to get through. He seemed like he was happy that his contract was written the way it was, and he wasn't going to be able to be picked up by Vince. He did seem like he didn't really want to go to Vince because he didn't think that Vince was going to be able to use him right, and at the same time, it was at the time of the Attitude Era, and he didn't know where he was going to fit in with his Christian beliefs. Which just gets us to him leaving to go to TNA, and then basically at this point is like in a movie when you find out that they showed you the finishing scene at the beginning. They build up the fact of what WrestleMania, was. And honestly, I haven't watched WrestleMania 31 since I was at WrestleMania 31. And I don't really know when the time's going to come up that I actually sit down and watch that whole show. And it wasn't that it was bad. I just maybe don't want to watch it back and not have the same feeling I had when I left WrestleMania 31 that day. But when they showed the footage of Sting versus Triple H, I knew what was going to happen. I know that DX was going to come out and they were going to attack Sting. I knew that NWO was going to come out and attack DX. I knew that Shawn Michaels was going to super kick Sting, but because I knew it, I was like, all right, come on, now here they come. And it's the way that they show it with the different cameras that they show on the pay-per-view feed. I don't know if they call that the director's cut or whatever it was, but I was pumped and I was fired up and I had major goosebumps for that match. Like I said earlier, the Sting DVD is good. The Sting DVD is great. It's not a top 10 dog. It's probably one that I'm not going to watch, honestly, for a long time. But I'm really glad that it was there. Things that I would have added, it was maybe Sting talking about Great Muta and how much that feud meant to WCW at the time. If you watch the bonus stories on the end of the documentary, they'll talk about how great the Super Brawl 1991 tag match was between Sting and Luger going up against the Steiner brothers, where these guys rode together. They were the faces of WCW. It was a lot like if you go back and you watch on the Click documentary, the bonus match they had. I believe the match is it involves Razor Ramon, Diesel, Shawn Michaels, and Scott Hall, I believe, is who it is. One thing or another, and just how great these guys fit together, how well they were together. I gotta go, it's 15 minutes, but Sting Doc, I give it 2 clicks up.